St. Thomas Academy, and welcome to the Cadet Football Show. I'm your host, Mike Maxwell, and to my left is our head football coach, Travis Walch. Coach, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you here.
Great to be back.
Yeah. So it's the first day of school here at STA. A lot of nervous freshmen and middle schoolers. Some very excited and enthusiastic seniors welcoming students at Flynn Hall, and a few actually struggling with the fact that we're back on campus. All in all, though, pretty good start to the school year. Coach, let's dive into the scrimmage from last week. So last Saturday, the team went down to Shakopee for a four-way scrimmage with Forest Lake, Lakeville South, and Shakopee. Mm-hmm. Four pretty good teams, had pretty good records last year. Give us your thoughts on how they played.
Well, the goal to go down there is to see some size, see some competition, see some scheme that is, quite frankly, really good and really difficult. Yeah. And in choosing those three opponents, our defense had a tremendous amount on their plate. Not just matching up with size and numbers. I think about something just little. I was talking to the Forest Lake coach, and he said we have 147 kids out 10 through 12.
Wow!
It's a massive amount of numbers and teams. So as we looked at those matchups, we clearly knew going into it. We said, hey, goal number one is, can our first group match up with a 6A team? And I thought we did that. I think where it gets tougher for any 5A or 4A against that type of competition is as you get deeper into your roster, our second team, well, then you start to see, well, wow, they got another 20 guys that don't look much different than the first. And that was one of the things that stood out. But more than anything, you go down there and you're really telling both sides of the ball, don't worry about, we did no prep whatsoever for those teams and what they run. Can we align? Can we run to the ball? How are we doing with tackling? As we talked about last week, we're not a big tackle in practice type group. Yeah. So how is that stuff now transitioning over to the field into a scrimmage situation? Yeah. So going into it, we knew there'd be a lot of challenges. We knew there'd be a lot of talent across the side of the ball, but that was intentional. That's what we wanted, is to be able to gauge where are we at right now relative to the highest level of football in the state.
Yeah. Well, and what I noticed, it was good for them to recognize formations, recognize what positions they should be in. Of course, a few mistakes along those lines. Yeah. But again, that's how you learn and get better, right? And
game day protocols. Like, what's it feel just going on and off the field in a game setting? What is the timing of it, and how are we communicating it? And what I really did like about part of that scrimmage is we moved the format around a little bit to better suit coaching. Yeah. Run our offense out there, let them get 6 to 7 reps, come off, and now they can work on what do we talk about in those 3 to 4 minutes while the defense is on the field. So that part of it we learned, we grew, and we were happy about that part of it.
Yeah, that's great. So my impressions, it felt like a little bit like a Vikings preseason game where they don't play a lot of the starters. We know what Savion can do, we know what Max Sims can do, and Max Anderson and Robbie Wolin. We've got a pretty good handle on where they're at. But it felt like there were some kids that were maybe on the bubble, maybe trying to decide, helping you decide who's going to be starting and who's going to be backing up. So that was a little bit my impression. I thought we competed well, but of course, lots of room for improvement, right?
Big time. The core of who we are going to need to be if we're going to win the games that we want to win is we have got to be able to stop the run. Mm-hmm. On defense, we have got to be able to fit it up and tackle well and stop the run. And I've told our group more than once, the core of who we have to be is when everyone in the stadium knows we need to run the ball to win the game, to get a first down, we need to be able to line up and do that stuff. You can't always be working on a tricky formation or a interesting play action. At some point, you have to line up and have enough scheme and enough knowledge and understanding of what defenses are presenting and be able to adjust and be pliable to be able to get that done. And I think what we found out the other day is we're not there from a scheme standpoint yet, but it's tough on those days because, again, we put no preparation into it. Now we've got, in a very short week, 3 days to figure out who Andover is, prepare our kids for who Andover is, and then see if we can execute in what is going to be a little 3-day practice span here.
Yep. Fun stuff for coaches, right? After I'm assuming you watched some film. Who stood out to you as they're starting to get it figured out?
I think we went into this saying, about 85% of our position battles, we pretty much thought we knew, hey, who's a starter? Who's a rotational guy? Who's a guy that's not a starter right now, but definitely has got to be playing in game to give our starters breaks? And that's really going to be the goal for us, is for I might have mentioned this last week, if we have 2 inside linebackers, the goal is that a third guy spells each one of those throughout a given half and picks up some reps. And that's not only to build depth, but that's to stay healthy over the course of a season. There were some position battles, guys that stood out to me offensively would be Will Nash. I think he had 10 catches. I don't know if anyone in a scrimmage has ever had 10 catches. It wasn't just that he caught the ball. Something I challenged him is, I know you can do some things in the open field. You can make the snazzy catch every once in a while, but can you make the contested catch? And can you make the tough catch? And what I really liked is he ran some slants against some really good linebackers and safeties and made tough catches and really showed us a lot. Every offense is going to say, offensive line wise, you have your first 5, but then what? And Emilio Gomez got hurt at our Thursday or Friday practice, and Patrick Fay had to come in and get something like 50 reps. But I tell our coaches all the time, and Emilio might be gone, or this week Teddy Knapp got sick, and Teddy might be gone. It doesn't mean we're not running someone else out on the field to take their spot. It's not like there's just a void there. And what's good for all of us to understand is we always want our top players, our best players, we want to be completely healthy, but it's football. And at some point we're not. And we don't lose that spot. Someone else has to step in, and I was really proud of those 2 on offense and the reps that they were able to give us in quasi backup or rotational roles.
Got it. That's great. So, speaking of health, did we come out of the scrimmage injury free, or how did we fare?
We did. Really, we went into it on Friday with 2 guys nicked up, and we said, just don't worry about it. We don't have to win a scrimmage this week. We have to win a game next week. So we pushed them back. So sometimes, though, in football, what you're going to realize is I'm going to get some of those reports today. Right? We got off the bus Saturday, everything feels great. Sunday, oh geez, ankle, knee isn't quite feeling the same. Then they talk to Cole, and Cole usually gives me a report about this time in the morning, noonish, to say, these are the guys that checked in. These are maybe some concerns for practice today. But at least what I'm hearing is the guys that did not practice or did not participate in scrimmage, like a Cody Packer, we believe will be ready to go. Emilio, we believe will be ready to go. So we'll just have to see what shows up here today, Monday.
That's good. All right, so training camp is complete. You got through the 2 weeks. Now it gets real, right? Andover comes to Jerry Brown Stadium on Thursday night. So no rest for the wicked, right? You get right back at it. So, but before we dig into this week's game, let's talk about the schedule for the season, so that the fans out there know what we're looking at this year. So, as we mentioned, we Andover comes to Jerry Brown Stadium on the 31st, this Thursday. Then we travel to Waconia on September 8th. And then we have a rivalry game with Cretin-Derham Hall on September 15th, and that game will be at TCO Stadium. And then we follow that up with another battle at Maddaus on the 22nd. And then we've got our homecoming game back here versus Armstrong on the 29th. We play at Apple Valley on October 6th. We are at home versus Hastings on October 13th. And then we travel to Chaska to wind up the season on a Wednesday game, October 18th. So a little different schedule than we've had in recent years. And actually 3 of the teams, if I'm not mistaken, we've never played, at least in my time here at the Academy. So what are your thoughts on the schedule?
Well, it's different. That's the first one. I talk to our kids is you're going to be walking into stadiums you've never walked into before. We're going to have jersey colors across from you that we're just not familiar with. And when you play Apple Valley every year, and there's 2 sides of this. I've always said, coming from the MIAC and at St. Thomas, playing Apple Valley and Hastings sometimes can be tougher than talent levels indicate because they know you so well. They know all your little wrinkles, all your little tricks.
Yep.
And I think some people will go, well, just look at the records. But familiarity is really tough. And no one wants to play anyone twice. We saw that last year. We don't want to play Maddaus again in the state quarters, right?
Yep.
These two programs know each other as good as anyone. So part of me says, new schedule, different, good. We get to run a lot of stuff that maybe they've never seen STA run. But we're on the other end of that too.
Yeah.
We don't know, the intricacies of an Andover or a Waconia. But then they also have to come to a new environment they haven't been to and have to come to Jerry Brown. So that whole thing plays out two ways. I know that we're really excited about the schedule. Yeah. I know we're really proud of all our teams in the past. And I think, I've heard at times, well, this schedule's a lot tougher. It happens to be this year. I think there's 4 teams that were, just in last year alone, 4 or 5 of our opponents were in the quarterfinals or better in state. Yep. But I reflect on recruiting here for a lot of years and going, I remember Hill Murray teams being really good. I remember South St. Paul teams being really good. You play Maddaus every year. If you're going to win 10 games in football at any level, you better be really, really good. And somewhere along the line, you're playing really good competition. Yep. So I'm thankful that we do have some new challenges, but I'm also thankful that we have Creighton and we have Maddaus and we have some of those programs that we see as rivals, and I think they would see us as rivals as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about a little bit about last week that the fact that you and the coaches you've been looking ahead, right, to this game against Andover. Describe what goes into developing a game plan without giving anything away either, right?
Lots. You want to talk about the amount of texting and calling and communicating that went on yesterday. And on top of it, this week is a short week. Yep. Really like to get to the point where we could do our scrimmages a week ahead of time. Interesting. We're at a point where we scrimmage on Saturday, we come back on Thursday. We're not going to do anything with our kids on Sundays. I mean, that's their day. That's a family day, obviously. Yep. So it is a short week, so it was probably amped up a little bit. And then on top of it, as a staff, again, we got through camp. Well, now game week becomes something different. Next year at this time, I'm thinking game week, it's just another game week. Yeah. This is a first game week with a brand new staff, brand new communication. How are we going to do this? We learned a lot on Saturday about how we need to get better on field. We're going to probably learn a lot this week about what we did well this week and what we didn't. So I think you had asked a question. I would love to be able to tell you how it's all going to go right now. I think in my mind I know, but that's probably going to be a better question for next week as to what happens. We're going to have a scouting report. We're going to get ready for what we've seen on film. And here's the other interesting thing about your first opponent every year. We have 2 full games from last year. So we do know the personnel that's coming back and who we think their top personnel is. They could have decided in the offseason, we're doing something completely different on offense and defense. Now, we also got scrimmage film, but we don't know if everything they put on that scrimmage film is what we're going to see on night 1. So
probably not.
Lots to learn. Easier in week 2, week 3, week 4, because now we're seeing game film of this year's unit and this year's team.
Exactly. So Andover's coming off of a 7-3 season, losing to 51-49 in the section championship to the eventual state champ Elk River, who was a really good team. So they were just as close to being in the state playoffs as Elk River was. So pretty good. What can we expect to see from the Huskies?
Yeah, so I think we'll start out offensively. They're going to be a spread team, and we are not a spread team at St. Thomas. If you're just saying, lots of wide receivers, gun, shotgun read stuff. So first thing that stands out to me is our defense has not seen a lot of this. They're going to spread it out. They're going to screen you. They want to spread you out to throw the ball. I talked last week, not to say that they won't run the ball, but they want to spread you out more to throw. It does not mean that we don't have to be really ready to stop the run. In my mind, it always starts there. Let's force them to throw wide and outside. It's something they just want to do naturally. So it's going to be different than maybe anything we've seen in camp or anything we saw at the scrimmage. So that poses a new and interesting problem. They're very skilled. They've got speed. They love throwing and catching and running, and I think we'll match up well from a athlete standpoint. But we got a lot of work to do this week scheme-wise to make sure we're putting our kids in the best positions. On the other side of the ball, they are a big physical front. And what I mean is their D-line and their inside linebackers, they're there to come up and stuff the run and just mash on you. And very similar to some of the groups that we saw last week in the scrimmage. And we think we know where they're at coverage-wise. Their defense really isn't a whole lot different than what our defense does. So for our offense, there's going to be more familiarity with what they're seeing this week from Andover. I think our defensive bodies look very similar, but I think the bigger change is going to be for our defense trying to figure out and seeing something that we haven't had a chance to see a lot of right now.
Yep, that makes sense. So you mentioned it before. You got a short week, 3 practices. What will be your focus and your coach's focus this week as you prepare for Andover?
One is clean up what we didn't do well last week. Can we align? Can we get a hard focus and just know what our run fit is and our pass fit is on defense? Can we run to the ball and just play to whistle? Can we be penalty free? We've taken everything that we saw out of those, 70 to 80 to 90 odd reps that we got the other day, and we've got to be able to back up and say, before we even get to scheme, can we correct these things, number one? That's part of it. The other side of it is then it becomes, what is our focus on Andover? And what you have to do as a coach, you have to say, hey guys, we put in all this stuff for 2 weeks. And guess what? Now we need about 35% of it. And I say a lot of times to our coaches is, part of this week is also telling our kids what they don't need to know right now. Clear your hard drives. 70% of what we installed, we only need 35% to beat Andover. So part of it is clearing their minds and going, don't worry about that anymore. This is all we have to worry about. The challenge next week then becomes, that was the Andover plan. Wipe it. Now we go on to what the next plan is. And that's where it becomes a different season. It's literally a 1 week, game week approach, and that is it. And then it starts over. If you're doing it well.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So on a bigger picture standpoint, what are the 1 or 2 things that this team needs to do to continue to get better?
Yeah, you'll hear me say this over and over and over again. We need to be able to stop the run and tackle well. And part of tackling is having proper leverage. Number of times last game where someone decided to dip inside when clearly they need to go outside on defense to force that ball back to everyone that's there. So we need to start making better choices there. It's one thing to put all your guys in a good position. That has got to be where it starts on defense. I thought we tackled pretty good against some good competition. But we cannot get in situations where you're going to hear me say, it's not, we got out leveraged. Someone decided to sneak inside, they break contain, and now everyone's chasing instead of converging on a ball. So that is where I start from a defensive side of it. From an offensive side of it, I think we need more tempo. We got to be better pushing plays in and off the field. We've got a lot of good skill on offense. I want to have more plays, not less plays on offense. I want our skill out there. Obviously, we need to be able to get first downs to do that. And if you said to me, what didn't we do well? We did not get a first down to open our drives with our ones. Then it's hard. You get off the field 3 plays, now you get to sit and wait. Man, to just get that first down takes us into another level. Now we're getting in that rhythm. So a first down is something we'll talk about a lot on offense. And you'll say, how am I going to know that things are going well? We got our first down, and now we will be able to explore, run more formations, figure out how they're lining up. And that is really the key to being able to slowly throughout a game navigate, how do we attack this team?
Got it. All right. Well, Coach, thanks for taking some time to talk a little cadet football. Good luck on Thursday.
Appreciate that.
So our cadets will play the Andover Huskies on Thursday evening at Jerry Brown Stadium. Kickoff is scheduled for 7 p.m. It is recommended that you purchase tickets online in advance, and we'll have a link below for you to do that. And if you're unable to attend but would like to watch the game, you can do so by visiting cadetbroadcast.com. We're starting our 18th season of streaming live football games. So if you're unable to make it, check that out. You'll find that link below as well. Finally, if you have any questions for Coach Walch, please use the comment box below, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you might have. And we'll be back next week to break down the season opener versus Andover, and look ahead to our next opponent, the Waconia Wildcats. Thanks for watching, and go Cadets.